Take a moment right now to slow down and breathe easily. Set aside all the noise in your mind for a short time and gently turn your focus inward to what you have truly been feeling deep beneath everything else. You may have noticed something lately that is hard to describe in simple words. There is a tightness that comes into your chest without any warning at all. A sudden memory of a certain person appears out of nowhere and seems to stay longer than expected. There is also a restless, electric kind of feeling that quietly hums just under the surface of your usual day, almost like something is waiting to unfold. That feeling is not random, and it is not only in your imagination. It serves as a signal. Something is shifting in your inner world, and your emotions are reacting before your thoughts can fully explain it. Your deeper self notices movement long before your logical mind can understand it. This is why certain feelings appear without a clear reason, yet still feel meaningful and hard to ignore. Your inner self works on a level that goes far beyond words or explanations. It picks up subtle emotional changes that move faster than anything happening on the outside. This is why you can sometimes sense change in a connection before there is any clear sign in the physical world. That soft pull in your chest, the one you often dismiss as overthinking or imagination, is actually your awareness responding to emotional shifts within you. If you have been feeling that sudden tightness in your chest, or that pull towards someone, take a moment to notice it instead of pushing it away. This is usually how deeper emotional changes begin. Before anything changes in the outer world, something first begins to move within. A quiet pressure builds up, not painful but noticeable, like an emotional awareness slowly rising to the surface. That is the situation you are in at this moment. Small openings are forming in what once felt closed or uncertain. New possibilities are starting to appear where before there seemed to be only silence or distance. What once felt blocked or unclear is now becoming a little more open, even if it is still not fully visible. Your place in this person's life has not simply disappeared the way you might have feared. While you were living your own life and dealing with your own thoughts and uncertainties, something was also shifting on their side. Even in silence, change can still happen. Even without contact, emotional movement can still take place in the background of someone's inner world. The protective walls they once built around their emotions, formed from fear, pride, and the need to stay in control, have not remained completely the same. Over time, those defenses can weaken, especially when feelings are not fully resolved. The emotions that were pushed down or ignored do not vanish easily. Instead, they slowly rise again when the mind is quieter. The strong feeling you have been sensing is connected to this inner change. There are emotions that are becoming harder to avoid or hide. The truth of what they feel is becoming more difficult to push away, whether they are ready for it or not. What is real inside a person often returns to the surface in its own time. To understand why things feel different now, it helps to see what has been happening in the quiet space between you. During this time, they have not fully disconnected. Instead, there has been distance mixed with observation, reflection, and internal conflict. Part of them tried to move forward, while another part stayed connected in ways they did not openly admit. During the time apart, they continued their daily life on the surface. From the outside, they may have seemed fine, steady, and focused on other things. They may have appeared like someone who had moved on and adjusted well. But appearances often hide what is happening internally. Calmness on the outside does not always mean peace on the inside. That outward calm was partly a way of coping. It allowed them to function while still avoiding emotions that felt complicated or uncomfortable. But over time, maintaining that emotional distance became harder. What was once a form of control slowly turned into something heavier to carry. Inside, there was a quiet struggle that nobody else could see. Night after night, thoughts returned that they could not fully silence. They tried to explain the distance through logic, telling themselves it was the safer or more reasonable choice. Some of it came from fear, some from pride, and some from not knowing how to deal with emotions that felt too strong or unfamiliar. Sometimes people step back, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much at once. Strong emotions can be overwhelming, especially when they bring vulnerability or uncertainty. Being seen deeply by another person can create both comfort and fear at the same time, which can lead someone to pull away, even when they care. But when a connection has real depth, distance alone cannot fully erase it. Over time, emotional defenses begin to weaken. The effort required to suppress feelings becomes exhausting, even if the person does not openly admit it. As this continues, they begin to notice something missing in their daily life. Moments feel less complete. Certain experiences feel quieter or less meaningful than before. Even when surrounded by people or activity, there is still a sense that something important is not there. A new awareness slowly grows inside them. They start to recognize that the version of themselves they have been presenting is not fully aligned with what they truly feel. It was a protective version, created to manage emotions, but it no longer feels entirely natural. Every attempt to move further away from the connection seems to bring their thoughts back again. It is not just missing someone in a simple way. It is something deeper that touches their sense of emotional truth. Over time, this becomes a turning point in how they understand their own feelings. There were moments when they tried to distract themselves with work, social activity, or constant noise. From the outside, it may have looked like they were doing well. But even in distraction, thoughts have a way of returning. Memories and comparisons appear quietly, often when least expected. All of this builds slowly beneath the surface until it becomes something they can no longer ignore in the same way. Avoidance can only last for so long before emotional exhaustion begins to take over. At some point, even denial stops feeling as effective as it once did. They had believed that time and distance would reduce the connection. They thought silence would make things fade and that space would create emotional detachment. But instead, something different happened. The longer the separation continued, the more clearly the feelings became. Rather than disappearing, the connection remained present in unexpected moments. It appeared in quiet times, in pauses during the day, and in moments when life felt empty for no obvious reason. Even in busy environments, the mind still returned to what had been left unresolved. A deeper understanding begins to take shape. They start to realize that what you shared was not just a passing experience or temporary connection. It reached deeper emotional layers than most experiences in their life. Once a person recognizes that a connection holds real emotional meaning, it becomes difficult to treat it as if it does not matter. Even when the mind tries to resist, the emotional truth remains present underneath. There have been moments when memories return strongly, even memories you may no longer think about. Small details, simple interactions, and ordinary moments now carry more emotional weight in hindsight. The sense of comfort, understanding, and ease is remembered more clearly over time. That kind of emotional safety is not easy to replace. When it is missing, it creates a quiet emptiness that cannot be filled by distractions or new experiences in the same way. Even attempts to move on often lead back to the same realization. At first, pride may try to take control and suggest that everything can simply be left behind. But pride has limits. Eventually, it meets emotional reality. When that happens, clarity begins to form in a more honest way. They begin to understand that this connection changed something in them. It is not something that can simply be undone or erased by decision. Experiences that shape emotional awareness leave lasting impressions that do not disappear easily. While this has been unfolding within them, something has also been shifting within you. Even if thoughts still return to this person, you are not in the same emotional state you were before. You have grown through the experience in your own way. You have become more aware of your own emotional energy and limits. You have learned what it feels like to give attention and care without receiving the same level of return. Over time, this naturally changes how you respond and where you place your focus. Slowly, you begin bringing your energy back toward yourself. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started recognizing your own emotional needs more clearly. This shift is quiet, but important. When someone constantly gives attention outward, their presence can become something others take for granted. But when they begin to withdraw that constant availability, the absence becomes noticeable. There was a time when your emotions were mostly directed outward, shaped by responses, messages, and attention from this person. Your inner state may have depended on their actions more than your own grounding. Eventually, that pattern becomes tiring. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet realization that your peace cannot depend entirely on someone else's behavior. This is where change begins. You start to turn inward, gently, without force. You begin choosing yourself again in small ways. This shift changes the emotional balance between you. When your focus was always outward, your presence blended into the background. But when your energy becomes more centered and steady, its absence becomes more noticeable to others. This is what begins to change the dynamic between you. The connection does not disappear, but it becomes different. It is no longer driven by constant reaching or waiting. Instead, it becomes something that exists in awareness rather than urgency. Because of this shift, they may feel more restless. Some part of them recognizes that something has changed. The version of you that was always available, always reaching, and always waiting is no longer the same. This creates a sense of urgency within them, as if time itself feels different now. Not because anything is being forced, but because emotional clarity often arrives when patterns begin to change and silence becomes clearer than before. People often cannot see the true value of something until they have spent enough time living without it. This person is now sitting with the full weight of every moment they waited too long, every feeling they pushed away, and every time fear guided their choices instead of honesty. For the first time, they cannot easily avoid that truth. Sometimes separation is not what ends a bond, but what makes it clearer and more visible than ever before. Distance has a way of revealing emotional patterns that cannot be ignored. It exposes where fear lives inside a person, and where someone has been slowly losing themselves while searching for love outside. It also shows what each person becomes when they stand completely on their own, without emotional comfort to lean on. In that space, truth becomes harder to deny and easier to feel. This time apart changed both of you, but in different ways. It helped you find your own value again, without needing their approval to confirm it or define it. At the same time, it gave them the experience of moving through life without your presence and without your emotional energy supporting them in the background. That absence created space for reflection, even if it was uncomfortable for them. That is why what you are feeling now carries so much meaning. Things that were once hidden under avoidance are now rising to the surface. This person is starting to understand that they do not only miss your attention, they miss your energy, your emotional depth, and the unique way they felt when they were around you. They miss the sense of being understood without having to explain everything in detail. That kind of connection is not easily replaced. That realization has grown strong enough that they can no longer push it aside. What they are experiencing is not just a passing mood or a few restless nights. It has become something steady, something that moves through their daily life, whether they try to ignore it or not. Even in normal moments, your presence returns to their thoughts without warning. There are times when they are doing something completely ordinary, and a memory of you suddenly takes over their attention. A sound, a smell, a certain word, or even a time of day begins to feel connected to you in some way. At first, this made them uncomfortable, because they believed they should have full control over their thoughts and emotions. They tried to decide when you could appear in their mind and when you could not. But emotional truth does not follow control. The deeper the connection, the more naturally it returns on its own. They are now reaching a point where resisting the bond takes more energy than simply facing it. The walls they built for protection are starting to feel less like safety and more like isolation. What once felt like strength now feels heavy. The silence they once chose is no longer comfortable. It feels louder now, filled with thoughts they can no longer avoid. This silence has pushed them into deeper reflection. From that place, they are looking back at moments they once overlooked. They remember when you tried to understand them, even while they stayed closed off. They recall your patience, which they did not fully appreciate at the time. Those memories now carry a completely different meaning. Real love often feels simple when it is present every day. It is not always recognized for its depth until it is no longer there. Now they are beginning to see how rare what you offered truly was. The honesty, the emotional depth, the steadiness, and the comfort of being accepted as they were, without pretending to be someone else. These qualities are not easily found again once they are gone. They have looked for pieces of that feeling elsewhere, but each attempt has left them feeling empty. Nothing compares to what they had with you. That absence only makes your importance clearer in their mind. There were nights when they tried to convince themselves to move on completely, only to find their thoughts returning to you before the night ended. If you feel strong signs or emotional shifts around this connection, take a moment to reflect on it. There are moments when they try to cut the emotional tie, but end up feeling an even stronger pull afterward. Every attempt to escape this bond has only made them more aware of it, instead of freeing them from it. This happens because what existed between you was never shallow or temporary. Something inside them recognized something real inside you. That kind of recognition does not disappear just because someone wants it to. It leaves a lasting imprint that changes how they see connection itself. This shift has also changed your energy in a fundamental way. Even if they cannot express it clearly, they feel it. They sense that you are no longer emotionally chasing them the way you once did. You have become more stable within yourself, less anxious, and less dependent on their response for your inner balance. That change has quietly affected how they perceive you. Strangely, this is exactly what has made their awareness of you stronger. When someone stops forcing love and returns to themselves, their energy becomes calmer and more grounded. In that calm, they are left alone with their own feelings without distraction. There is no longer your urgency in the background, only their own truth rising to the surface. Their thoughts keep returning to this connection. Their emotions are no longer allowing them to stay away from the truth comfortably. The truth is becoming harder to ignore with each passing day. You matter to them in a way that has changed how they understand emotional closeness itself. This realization can feel overwhelming for someone who has tried to stay in control for a long time. Because once you fully accept how much someone means to you, you also accept vulnerability, uncertainty, and the possibility of being hurt. That is not something they have been comfortable facing. Fear has guided many of their choices for a long time. Fear of being hurt, fear of losing control, and fear of being fully seen and then abandoned. But fear has limits. It cannot hold back emotional truth forever. The weight of avoidance is now becoming heavier than the fear itself. They are slowly moving toward honesty, even if they do not fully realize it yet. The silence between you is no longer empty for them. It feels emotionally full, almost overwhelming at times. Every day they stay disconnected, the awareness grows stronger. Every attempt to suppress it creates more pressure inside them. This is why the shifts you have been sensing feel so intense. Something within them is preparing for change, not through force, but through understanding that develops quietly over time. They are beginning to realize that losing you would not just mean losing a person, but losing a part of themselves that only existed within this connection. That understanding creates deep emotional change. Even if they have not acted on it yet, their inner world is moving. At times they come very close to reaching out. The pressure builds until silence feels like it might break, but fear still stops them at the last moment. Fear has protected them for a long time, but it is weakening slowly. Truth is becoming stronger than hesitation. The silence that once felt safe now feels like it is working against them. Distance that was created for protection now feels more like loneliness. This is the stage before change becomes visible. For a long time, they believed that avoiding feelings would make them fade. Instead, the opposite has happened. Each attempt to disconnect has shown them how deeply rooted this bond is. They are now facing something they cannot easily walk away from. You have changed them in a lasting way. Once someone realizes that another person has permanently shaped how they experience love, they cannot return to who they were before. This creates an inner awakening. They are starting to understand that peace does not come from running away, but from honesty. There are moments now when they feel extremely close to reaching out. The emotional pressure grows so strong that silence almost breaks on its own. Their mind imagines conversations, possible replies, and outcomes. Fear slowly loses power as emotional longing becomes stronger. Although patience is still needed, a real shift is unfolding beneath the surface. Their inner walls are weakening. This connection is approaching a major turning point toward emotional honesty. The truth inside them has become too strong to suppress completely. At the same time, the most important realization is yours. You are beginning to understand your own worth in a clearer way than before. When you stop chasing and return to your own peace, everything shifted. That change forced them to feel your absence more deeply. Trust what you are sensing beneath the silence. It is not imagination. Both of you are standing near truth in your own way. One is learning to stop running. The other is learning to love without losing themselves. Whatever happens next, remember this. You are already becoming whole. Not because someone chooses you, not because silence ends at a certain moment, and not because all questions are answered quickly. You are becoming whole because you stopped abandoning yourself while loving someone else. That is a deep form of healing that changes everything that follows it. And sometimes, the quiet before change is exactly where the most important growth is happening for both people at the same time, just beneath the surface.